Our question is, what state resources were used and what was the scheme to help this political operation in Texas that resulted in all these state legislators fleeing to Illinois? I was talking about gerrymandering earlier, and the left is all apoplectic that Republicans are taking advantage of the laws and their rights under the Constitution to redraw congressional district maps in a way that are favorable to their party. It's been happening for decades. In some cases, I don't think it's lawful. In other cases, it's perfectly lawful. It depends, frankly, at this point, just on state law. In many jurisdictions, in many states, you have Democrat-controlled legislatures and state governments that have created congressional districts that essentially have stripped Republican representation completely from voters, meaning there's no real way to elect a Republican in various states due to redistricting choices by Democrat leadership in those states. And Republicans are trying to change a few state maps in order to increase Republican representation in Congress, because the more districts that have Republican-friendly voting demographics, meaning Republican-leaning voters, the more likely they are to retain, to either get a Republican elected or protect an incumbent Republican. So Texas famously, and to the outrage of the left, hypocritical as it is, changed their rules or moved to change their maps to essentially create 5 more leaning Republican districts in Texas. And in response, before that a final vote could take place in the legislature, you had Democrats literally flee the state from the legislature, who are members of the legislature, flee the state so the legislature couldn't meet. Is that insurrectionist activity? I'll leave you to judge. But given the way insurrection's been defined, I think it probably falls under it. And where did they go? They went to Illinois. Governor Pritzker hosted them and explicitly suggested that any law enforcement moves against them by Texas or even the FBI would be thwarted by him. Really kind of again, I understand Governor Pritzker's probably running for president, but I would hope the rule of law and thwarting it and attacking our constitutional system, I guess it's a temptation that you want to kind of be seen to be doing that in order to be a candidate for president. It's really disturbing. But those are political decisions people can make. Our question is, what state resources were used and what was the scheme to help this political operation in Texas that resulted in all these state legislators fleeing to Illinois? So we asked Pritzker for records about it. This is what he did. Because I've got the record, in our press release, we highlighted exactly what he was saying and doing. When asked why the Texas legislators went to Illinois, the governor responded, "The great heroes of the House Democratic Caucus decided the only thing they could do in order to stop was leave Texas." And where did they decide to come to? The safe haven of the state of Illinois, where we are going to protect them and take care of them. Who's we? Taxpayers? That's not appropriate. Frankly, in the state of Illinois, we are not going to let them get taken away. When he was asked if the FBI can arrest them, we're going to protect the Texas House Democrats. So they began their walkout. When did they do it? On August 3rd, 50 state Democrat legislators fled the state. Didn't stop the final vote from being conducted. They had to come back home eventually. And by the way, they could have been arrested by Texas for doing that. So he was essentially telling Texas, the rule of law in Texas doesn't count here in Illinois. I mean, I thought we had a constitution that required states to uphold the rule of law and not obstruct good faith application of law in other states, and actually aid and abet it. The violation of such laws. So we asked for the following records: all audio-visual recordings, etc., all these documents of meetings held between Pritzker and congressional Democrats at which Texas congressional redistricting or the Illinois possibly housing Texas Democrats were discussed. All audio-visual recordings, handwritten notes, agendas, minutes, and reports related to a meeting held between Pritzker and Democratic Party officials in late June in Oklahoma regarding congressional redistricting. We quoted the story. Here's the story. In case Governor Pritzker and his people didn't know, what are you talking about, Judicial Watch? The Washington Post, inside Texas Democrats' plans to seek refuge with Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. They were welcome in Illinois, Pritzker told them. Soon his staff was talking daily with Texas Democrats, and earlier this week he stood next to state lawmakers as they explained their escape into Chicago, assembled in front of a J.B. backdrop advertising Pritzker's election campaign. He called it a righteous act of courage. So he's obviously aware that some of this activity could be campaign-related activity or partisan activity that's inappropriate for taxpayers to pay for. And that's why, of course, we asked for records. That's why we asked for his staff's communications with him about this. So what does the rule of law mean? Does the rule of law mean that a governor of another state can conspire with the legislators of another state to break that state's law and flee the state? It's the opposite of the rule of law. I'll say it once, I'll say it again, and this is not a partisan point because, you know, it's not all Democrats are leftists, okay? So I'm not saying Democrats believe this. But there are too many leftist politicians, all of whom happen to be Democrats, who don't care one whit about the rule of law and actively seek to undermine it. And I don't mean liberals, I mean leftists. This is not liberal behavior. Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, yeah, it is. Well, my point is leftist radicalism is a threat to our constitutional republic, a threat to the rule of law, endangers the public safety, undermines our elections, etc. And Judicial Watch is going to expose it where we can, especially as is expressed through government officials who adhere to an approach that would destroy constitutional government and the rule of law. I mean, it's one thing to have, for example, a citizen activist coming out there and saying, oh, this should be done. It's another thing to have someone in a public trust position, a position of public trust, an elected official, essentially go in and try to destroy a legislature of another state through misconduct. So I'm glad we sued over this. I really am. And And our friend Christine Zenson of Chalmers, Adams, Becker, and Kaufman is assisting Judicial Watch in this case. Christine works with Judicial Watch on a number of cases in Illinois. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.